Friends, I hope you're all well and are starting to come to terms with our new lives and what's happening in the world around us. It's very unsettling and it's difficult times. And today, Thursday, is the day when I usually sit down to prepare my sermons for Shabbat. And I have a good few hours, of course, designated every week to prepare my sermon. And I sat down this afternoon and I thought to myself, there's no service, there's no sermon, how sad. But I thought to myself, I'll share with you a story. Story about Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta was from Russia. He lived in the 19th century, was the founder of the Musar, the ethical movement of Judaism, the focus on ethical texts. And he's actually known as the rabbi who ate on Yom Kippur. So, in Russia in the 19th century, there were various cholera pandemics spreading across the country, different decades. And in 1848, there was one particularly severe one, which began a few weeks before Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Salanta ruled for the entire community that everyone should be eating Yom Kippur, no one's allowed to fast. And there were some people who were slightly hesitant, and word got back to him that some people were planning on fasting. And so on Yom Kippur morning after Shahrit, he told everyone, we're taking a break now, an early break. He took everyone down to the Kiddush room. He went to the fridge, took out the grape juice and some cakes, and in front of everyone made Kiddush Yom Kippur and began to eat. And people were surprised, and some people were upset. And he turned around to them and he said, what are you upset about? You fast every Yom Kippur because Hashem says to do so. This is the will of God. And today is where you should be happy as well, because this is the will of God. Hashem wants you to be eating a Yom Kippur. And so, this coming Shabbat is probably the first time in 44 years that Wembley Synagogue will not have a minyan on Shabbat. The doors will be closed. And that's sad. But when we think about it, we should be happy. We should rejoice. We are doing the will of Hashem. This is what Hashem wants. This is the right thing to do. And we shouldn't be in any way despondent. And we should be thinking to ourselves that this is the way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you think about it, it's not to be ignored, the fact that we are now all going to be at home alone with our families, whoever it may be that we're with. And this really makes us start to think about our relationship with those closest to us. Whoever it is that we are living with, whether it's our spouses, our children. And during the rest of the year, during the rest of our lives, we manage to get away, we send our kids to school, we absolve ourselves of our duties to our children. And we don't spend enough time with our spouses or with our parents. And this is a time where people are really going to have to spend time with one another. And I know for some, that might sound scary, but ultimately this is a chance to develop our relationships, shalom bayit, to work on our relationship with our family, people in our household. And most importantly, I think, the fact that minyanim and shuls have been closed across the country means that God is telling us very clearly, this is now time for personal development. This is now time for your personal relationship with God. Minyanim are great. The power of community is amazing, as we've seen this past week. But ultimately, they can sometimes be a distraction. And they can take us away from really focusing on God. And so this coming Shabbat, make sure that we keep Shabbat properly. This is Shabbat Vayakel Pekudeh, as I mentioned in the previous message, which begins with the instructions of keeping Shabbat. And we must make sure that we strengthen ourselves in keeping Shabbat. Make sure to light candles before Shabbat. Shabbat begins at 6 p.m. exactly tomorrow and concludes at 7:02. So just over 25 hours. Try to switch yourselves off from the world around us. Switch off your phones. Switch off everything else, all the distractions. And spend a real Shabbat. Just by yourself, with your loved ones, and most importantly, with God. And we should use this opportunity to pray more. Although we don't have the synagogue, we don't have a minyan, we can still open our siddur and we can pray. Pray Shachrit. The main part of Shachrit you can find on page 99 in your daily occasional book. The main part of the service begins there. Read the service, if not in Hebrew, in English. Read the Amidah. Read the parasha by yourself. Read it from English if you can't read the Hebrew. And then before you begin Musaf, give yourself a sermon. Give yourself a sermon. Preach to yourself. Have a go at doing what the rabbi does every Shabbat. See how it feels. And then make sure to spend time learning Torah and making the most of Shabbat. And ultimately developing our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I just want to say to everyone, Shabbat Shalom to you all. Tammy and I